What's going on? Santon from antondaniels.com. I appreciate you guys for continuing to rock with me. It is raining outside, which is basically telling you that you're not gonna get an outside vlog, me on a location, telling you some kind of history or what's popping in the city whatsoever. But I do have to get ready for the Millionaire Morning Show. And with that being said, I wanna make this quick, I wanna make this short, and I wanna get my thoughts off. I got a couple different things that I wanna talk about really quickly. The first being, I was looking at an interview from J.D. Vance's wife. And it's not so much of an interview, but more or less just a quote. And she was basically saying that she's developed thicker skin as a result of being the wife, and she's an Indian wife of a white man in particular. J.D. Vance, for those of you that have been living under a rock, is actually the vice presidential candidate on the Trump ticket. And so she was basically saying that she's developed thicker skin as a result of being the wife, of just being the wife of J.D. Vance and having all of this new visibility that comes along with him running as Trump's running mate for the vice president of the United States of America. Now, the reason that that is important is that I always take what I've learned in other situations and apply it to my life in every aspect of my life. So for example, you know, I've read Warren Buffett's different books about Warren Buffett, one of them being Buffettology, and I've adopted a lot of the same principles and the mentality that it comes along with an investment perspective. Robert Kiyosaki, obviously a lot of people understand Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it's a mentality, right? Random Walk Down Wall Street from a financial perspective. I've also read Invent and Wander about Jeff Bezos and, you know, about Elon Musk and his mentality about tackling things and how it was that he grew up, right? It's the way I learned that he was actually born as a South African and not an American. It's a lot of things that I've learned. I've also read David Goggins' You Can't Hurt Me, which then gives me a different perspective of how it is that I approach life and pushing the limits of what's possible, considering that I'm a kid from Detroit, born between 7 Mile and 8 Mile, Livernois in Wyoming on you know, Scony Ave. That's pretty much what it is, right? And so when I see things from people, a lot of times I take it differently than other people take it, because other people just look at it as entertainment, and I'm trying to figure out what the lesson in it. Even in the movies that I watch, I'm trying to figure out what the lesson's in it, right? And so in that sense, the first thing that comes to mind is different and new content creators on a regular basis, or when people are worried about trolls. Now, if you are going to be on the internet, if you have any platform, we all go through it, some of us more than others. You're going to have people that disagree with you, you're gonna have people that troll you, you're gonna have people that hate you. But I want you to understand this, hate is the same energy as love, and they both can be profitable. As a matter of fact, I would say hate is much more profitable than love, because you now have somebody that is invested in your failure or your success, and I call it the Mayweather effect. The Mayweather effect is, it doesn't matter if they tune in to see you win or they see you lose, as long as they tuning in, as long as they paying that price, as long as they are giving you their eyeballs, as long as they're giving you that watch time. And y'all content creators are gonna have to develop thicker skin. You gotta develop thicker skin, and one of the ways that you can do that is changing your mentality as to how it is that you see hate, right? They're not hating, they're invested in your story. And just because they give a comment or something negative does not necessarily mean that it's supposed to affect you in your daily life. Look at it as an opportunity, capitalize off of it. Remember, somebody without a profile pic that is now commenting or watching your stuff on a regular basis now has a vested interest in your success or your failure, but the watch hours are the same. The love is the same as the hate. And as a matter of fact, I would prefer to have somebody that is on the left or the right as far as picking a side of whether they hate you or they love you. But what I've done is figure out how to monetize it. So in my case in particular, what I choose to do is I choose to embrace it and make more content that would then feed into whether you hate or you love me, which would then keep them invested, and it keeps me in an algorithm, which ultimately translates into money, all right? So that's just a tip for you new content creators, because I've been doing this for a long time. I've seen it all. I've seen it all. I will tell you that my biggest months on YouTube is when people are the most upset with the stuff that I do. So remember, hate and love is the same emotion, but often at times it can be much more profitable depending on who it is that you upset, especially when you're standing on business on what you really feel. Now, that's one thing. The other thing that I want to have a conversation with you guys about is your voting patterns, right? And I had a conversation about this on the Millionaire Morning Show. And I was explaining to people what the difference was between Republicans and Democrats and why it's so easy for them to finesse your vote. Well, we know they give you games, right? I already talked to y'all about that. We know that they tend to try to distract y'all from the things that's really meaningful by parading out Meg Thee Stallion and all of this other type of stuff, right? But the real question then becomes, what is the difference between Democrats and Republicans? Because on a foundational level, for most of us, especially those of us that grew up in neighborhoods or environments where they told you to vote that way just because you're black, most of the time the excuse that they gave you is, well, because Republicans are for the rich and Democrats are for the poor. How can that be? How can that be? Ask yourself that question. How can that be? If the majority of people that are parading this thing to you on the Democratic side, especially if you look at all of these Congress members and stuff, they rich. They rich while their constituents that they serve are poor, which means that they're not a reflection of the people that they're advocating for. And once they get into that position, they are guaranteed to be a millionaire and have a lifetime job with great benefits. I like to describe it like this, right? If you look at the history of black people alone, as far as our alignment with the Democratic Party, especially their history, and the very idea that they were the ones that advocated for and stayed enslaving black people, regardless of why we were freed from the Republican side, the point is that we are always, and we have always had a conservative view, and we are more aligned with Republicans than we have been Democrats. And the reason why is because, think about it, all throughout history, feminism, civil rights movement, feminism, civil rights movement, alphabet community movement, all of these different things that they champion. As recently as Barack Obama, he didn't necessarily champion black people at all. He leveraged his blackness in order to have a conversation with you guys about how you should vote for him, even if it wasn't overtly. He didn't say, vote for me because I'm black. They automatically knew that they had the black vote because identity politics, right? And so they never had to do anything for your vote. They never have to ask you for anything. They never have to ask you what you want. They never have to go into your neighborhoods. They only show up during election season, an election cycle. They only go to environments that are swing states. They never go into your county, your city, your state, because they already know exactly how you're gonna vote. And what they've done throughout history is tie you to the Democratic Party by saying that Republicans are for the rich, Democrats are for the poor, but more importantly, look at how I'm gonna prove this to you. I'm gonna prove this to you by giving you welfare. I'm gonna prove this to you by giving you feminism and freeing you from your households, which ultimately was the worst thing for you. I'm gonna advocate for the alphabet community. I'm gonna give you the Asian hate crime bill. I'm gonna do all of these things, but basically what they're doing is they're giving you a fish. When they give you a fish, they make you interdependent on them and they make you think that you owe them something, even though you pay them with your tax dollars and you pay with your vote. They're there to serve you. And so they say, be loyal to me because I fed you or I gave you something, even though it came out of your own money and your own tax dollars, or it comes from people that are working their ass off every day. And the most recent version of it is the migrant crisis. So now they're inviting all of these people in. They got not voter IDs, but they now able to get driver's licenses. They using your tax dollars in order to fund it. They get health care, they get schooling, they get housing, free hotels, they get everything. They even get EBTs and free food, and they get cash payouts. They're creating a new voter block. And they tying them to the Democratic Party, and that's how they stay in power. They never say on the Republican side, we got to get out the vote, we got to get the people in the urban community to the polls, even though they're feeding you information. The Republican side is saying, I want to unleash you because I don't want to do it for you. The American dream is the opportunity of what if. It's basically, if I remove all of the barriers to entry and I allow for you to really be able to do what you do, it's sink or swim. It's capitalistic. It's whatever it is that you make out of it. So I want to enable you, lower inflation, prevent new wars, put more money into the American economy, focus on the American people. I want to make sure that you have the possibility to do what you want to do. And if you want to win, if you want to get rich, if you want to be regular, whatever you want to do, you want to go out to the suburbs, city, that should be your choice. And you should have the ability to do so. I want to teach you how to fish, and I want to enable you by allowing for the waters to be fishable. Democrats are saying, let me get this GMO homegrown, fake fish, give it to you so that you'll now be tied to the Democratic Party, and that's gonna be the end of the conversation. And that's how they get you. Because if I can give you a little bit at a time, I can keep you coming back. The Republicans saying, if I can make sure that you have the ability to do for yourself, that's all you're supposed to have, because that's what America is built on, is the idea of you being able to achieve the American dream based off of your own merits. That's basically the difference. One teach you how to, or one give you a fish, one is teaching you how to fish and making sure that the waters is good. And I don't mean that all Republicans is good. Some of them is bad. I don't mean that all Democrats is bad. Some of them is good. But my point is the mentality and how it is that they've leveraged you, even though they don't have to give you anything, and they don't have to create any environment that allows for you to thrive, but then basically continues to create new voter blocks every single year, does not bode well for what success is supposed to look like when it comes to the American people. And even though your people continue to tell you that what you're supposed to do, I'm trying to tell you that you got a different way. You have to have a different way of thinking. And that's why people typically, as they get older, especially black people typically as they get older, switch over to being more Democrat or Republican or conservative, because they now understand and they now starting to pay attention to what the real play is. All right. So I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. I'm about to get ready for this show. And I'm going to see y'all on the Millionaire Morning Show. And make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. Teach Hanley, 40% off your first order plus 20% off for life. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. I'm going to holler at y'all later. Peace.